Welcome to your first geometry lesson via Math with Job's Studios for the 2020-2021 school year. I think I said enough 20s in there. All right, so what I put together here is a document that has just the list of the definitions that you did on your Jamboard with your group. So you don't need to write these down because they're in the Jamboard, but what I would like you to do when you take notes is write down the word, draw the picture, and write down how we name that thing. So some of these, we're not going to be talking about the names. I'm just going to clarify the definitions in case you have questions on them. But for most of these, we're going to talk about how you name them and the notation. So that's what this lesson is about. If you want to write down the definitions, you are more than welcome to, but I really just want you to focus on the correct notation. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a point, which is a location with no size. Oops. A point, we put a dot, so that's how you'll see it on a picture. And then there will be typically a single capital letter. So we would say point P is what we would say. Okay, point P is how we say it, but we just write the letter P, and that's a single capital letter. All right, the next thing is a line, which is a series of points that extend in two opposite directions without end. All right, so the two opposite directions we see are designated by these arrows here. So there's a couple different ways to name a line. The first way is using 2 points that are on the line. And when I do that, I can pick, let's say I did L and P. So then over the top of it, I'm going to put a little mini line with 2 arrows. So I would read that as line LP. Okay, and I can pick 2 different points. So let's say I pick P and Q. Also, it doesn't matter the order of your points. So you could say QP if you wanted to. That is the same line. Okay, and then what other 2 points haven't I used? I have not used L and Q, so I could do QL if I wanted to. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different ways to name a line. If you only know 2 points on it, then there's only 2 ways, right? If we only knew points L and P, we could say LP, or we could say line PL. Collinear objects lie on the same line. So when we say objects, really we mean points. There's nothing else that can be on a line. So in this one, we would say point L, point P, and Q are all on the same line because they are collinear. Okay, so they are collinear. A plane is a flat surface that has no thickness and extends without end. So think about a piece of paper that has no edges, just a flat piece of paper that goes on forever and ever and ever. All right. And so we can, for a line, I forgot one way to name it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Another way to name a line, if I go back up here, I'm sorry, is if there's a little tiny single lowercase letter, usually it might be an L, an M, or an N. I don't know why we stick with the middle of the alphabet. But you can also use a single lowercase letter, and we would call that line L. And those are typically cursive. I don't know why. That's just another way. So if there's not any points on the line, you might see it as a single lowercase letter. Okay, back to planes. So planes are similar. You can either talk about it naming points or you can talk about it with a single letter. But for planes, instead of lowercase, we use a single capital letter. And we always put the word plane in front of it. Whereas a point, we don't write the word point. So plane P. Another way is to use 3. I don't know why I spelled 3 wrong. Okay, so another way is using 3 points on the plane. And how we know that they're points and not the single letter is because they have dots next to them. So if you see this P here doesn't have a dot next to it, that's how I know it's not a point. It's talking about the plane itself. And most of the time those capital letters are kind of, they might be italicized where the point letters aren't. So they'll be in a different font maybe even, okay? So they'll look a little different. And then points and lines that are on the same plane are what we call coplanar. So if I wanted to draw this line from A to B, I could say line AB and point C are coplanar. All right, a segment is part of a line consisting of two endpoints and all the points between them. So a segment could be from L to P. A segment could also be maybe I go from P to Q, or maybe I even go from L to Q. Okay, all of those are segments. So the first one is from L to P. And we would write that as LP with a line and no arrows above it. Or you could write it as PL, same thing, direction doesn't matter. Okay, so then if I did PQ, I could say P segment PQ, or I could say QP, segment QP, okay? And you read it as segment QP. Okay, and then the last one you can call it LQ or QL for your segments there. Okay, our next one is kind of part segment, part ray, or part line. It's called array. So array, we pick one endpoint, and then we have all the points on the line in one direction from that endpoint. So if I pick my point L and I go in this direction, that would be ray LQ. Okay, so we say ray LQ. And so when I write this, the important thing is that the first point is always the end point, is always listed first. And then the second point tells me which direction from that end point do I shade, which direction on the line does my ray go. And then my arrow on the top of it always goes from left to right. Always. Okay, it never is written the other way. Okay, so this one direction does matter, and the order of the points do matter. Okay, so I can pick a different ray on that line. Let's say I wanted P and I shaded this direction. So that orange ray there would be ray P because the endpoint's first, and then I went in the direction of L. Okay, and remember my arrow on the top always goes from left to right. All right, so an angle, I didn't put a picture on here already, so let's draw an angle. So an angle looks like this, and it's two rays that share an endpoint. So there are three different ways to name an angle. Okay, so the first way is using what we call the vertex point. So let's say this is point A. I could just call this angle A. Okay, so that's by just the vertex. And you can do this if there is no other angle that shares that vertex, okay? If there are other angles that share that vertex, like let's say there was another ray that came out here, then you can't do that, okay? So you can only do it if it's the only angle with that point as a vertex. Okay, another way is let's say there was another angle that had point A as a vertex. Then let's see here. Let's make it fun. Let's make it an animal. All right. So then I could call it, I could use 3 letters, and your letters always go in order that you would draw the angle. So the vertex is always in the middle. So I could call this angle cat or angle tack. Okay, and notice the vertex is always in the middle. Vertex, always in the middle. Oops. And then the third way is sometimes in pictures, they'll just put like a little number inside the angle. It's kind of like that lowercase letter to name lines. So I would call this angle 1. And so sometimes they might just name the angles by numbers like that. Okay, we're back to rays. Opposite rays are 2 collinear rays with the same endpoint. So an angle, the difference between an angle and opposite rays is that an angle, your rays are on the same line. Opposite rays are on the same line. So here, if I have point P and I go out this direction, I have ray PQ. And over here, if I start at point P, same endpoint, remember, and I go out this direction, ray PL are what we say are opposite rays. Okay, no gaps or overlaps. And together they make a line. All right, parallel lines you're familiar with. You've seen parallel lines before, but we can also think about parallel lines in 3 dimensions. So that's something I kind of want you to think about. So they are coplanar lines, so they have to be on the same plane, and they never intersect. So if I look at this picture down here, AB and EF, lines A, B, and EF are parallel. That symbol right there means parallel. Okay, and so the plane that they are on, to make sure that they're coplanar, is this front plane right here. And that front plane, remember we can name it with 3 points, so I can pick any of the points on there. And so the A, B, E, and F, so they are on plane, I just need 3 of those. I'm going to do A, B, F. You can pick any 3 you want and put them in any order you want. So you could have said FAB if you wanted to. Doesn't matter. Now when I talk about skew, so skew has to be 3 dimensions, okay? So we have to be 3D. All right, so my skew lines here, they picked AB and CG. So AB is once again this top line here, and CG is this line here. So they do not go the same direction, okay? So they're not the same direction. And you can kind of think about them as they have like 1 point that's like closest, but the rest of their points are just getting farther and farther apart from each other. Okay, so they're never going to touch, and they go in different directions, and you have to think about it 3-dimensional. This doesn't happen. You can't do this on a piece of paper. Okay, and then parallel planes are planes that never intersect. So an example of this might be the top and the bottom. So if I have the top, and then I have the bottom of this box, you could also do the front and the back. You could do the left and the right. Okay, so if I did the top, I could say plane ADC, and if I did the bottom, plane HGE are parallel. Okay, that's it. So after you are finished watching this video, please go ahead and do the Jamboard for today. Thank you.